Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We have long lost friend returning after about a year since his last interview. We are speaking, of course, the one and only Zachary King, who has got a great witness to the faith. Not only was he, as you'll see in other videos on the channel where he's been on previously, and it's a title that is long forgotten, which was High Wizard of the Church of Satan many years ago, until the time Our Lady appeared to him through that miraculous medal in his hand. The full story, the full conversion story, is all available from the previous videos I'll leave after this one. But he is coming back fresh after almost a year since his last interview with me, warning us about the spiritual warfare around the time of Halloween. We've been trying to get in touch now for the last few months, and for the last few weeks trying to set a date, and we're finally here doing it, coming to you now. So first of all, Zachary, I'd just like to say welcome back. I cannot believe it's been a year. How have you been?
I've been good. I've been good. Yeah, it's crazy that it's been a year. It just doesn't seem. It seemed like I just had this interview like a couple of months ago.
Yeah, that's what it feels
Well,
like.
my dad told me that as you get older, time gets faster and faster.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My mum said the same thing. Well,
Funny thing about my dad is that when I was growing up, my dad seemed like the stupidest human being in the planet. Like he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know songs. He didn't know pop culture. He didn't know movies. He just the things that to me were of vital importance to my dad didn't matter. And I couldn't understand that. And he was, like I said, the dumbest man alive. When I turned 40 years old, my wisdom kicked in, and suddenly my dad was brilliant.
well, it's my 40th year, so I'll keep that in mind. When I first wrote back to you saying if you would want to come back on, I know it's a few months back. It was actually as far back as when I started seeing things happening in Kansas, where I know you're from these days. It was like some Satanists trying to desecrate the Eucharist. Then there was something else happening separately in Kansas, and I think there was like two or three things reaching the news over here, or something on social media such as that. Eucharistic desecration stuff. All of a sudden, Kansas was all happening at once. I'm like, I need to get in touch with Zachary, especially after our last talks, and say what's happening over there. I know it's old news now, but you were kind of part of the spiritual protest, so to say, or something. I remember you mentioning something about it. Can you give us any background to what was happening and what's happened since?
We had a satanic coven here called the Satanic Grotto, and they held a black mass at our state capital in Topeka, and they wanted to do it at um, the I don't know what it's called. It's the whatever the legislative or whatever the body, the government is, where the Capitol is. They wanted to do it inside the Capitol building, and they did it. They attempted it. They had a consecrated host, and there was a Catholic guy that had infiltrated their group, and the the high priest took the Eucharist. He had it wrapped in a linen inside of a plastic bag. He opened it up, pulled out the linen, pulled out the host, and said, "They believe this is God." But he treated it well up until this moment. And then he took it and he slammed it on the ground. And that's when our Catholic infiltrator dove into action. He dove down, grabbed it, and while trying to he got half of it in his mouth. And then, when he slammed it on the ground, the wind blew it under a table. So, and this guy tried to stomp on it. The guy on the ground grabbed his foot and thrust it upwards. So it took the guy off balance. He then grabbed the Eucharist and shoved it in his mouth, consuming it. For his trouble, he got beat up pretty bad. The guy that tried to stomp it had big boots on. He was kicking him in the face, and the other Satanist started beating on him. Another guy tried to grab. The guy was reading the prayer from a piece of paper, and a guy grabbed it out of his hand, and so he punched that guy. And so the Satanist is kicking the guy on the ground and punching the guy standing next to him. He got arrested and charged with assault for beating on the guy that tried to get the paper out of his hand. And our friend that got attacked on the ground, he got arrested, and they held him for about, it was a couple of hours, and then they decided they didn't have anything to charge him with, so they let him go. And he said he got out just in time to go to mass. And I think he's gotten interviewed on quite a few shows for being like the hero of the hour. And people ask him, how did you feel? You got beat up pretty bad. And he says, I got beat up for Jesus. I'll do that every day. And then my family was there for this event. People signed a petition all around the world, I think, so that this black mass wouldn't be allowed to take place at the Capitol building. And over 100,000 people signed the petition, but at the event, it was like 300 people showed up. 100,000 people signed, 300 people showed up. It's like, really? That's it? That's all that can represent? So 300 people showed up, but my kids showed up. My 16-year-old daughter watched this event took place, and she watched that guy dive down, take the Eucharist, and shove it in his mouth. And she was like, I want to do that. She goes, I would totally take that beat down to save Jesus, which was very inspirational because up until that point, she hasn't been like this. But she's started evangelizing to her friends at school. She told them that she saw a demon one night and it scared her. And she realized that if that demon is real, God is real. So she's got friends at school that don't believe in God or Satan or anybody. And she's like, no, I've got proof. Demons are real. And I know God is real because of that. She's turning into a little evangelical warrior, for Catholics. And I'm very proud of her.
Brilliant. That sounds great because it only takes one heroic act like that man did for it. And did any arrests or anything come to the Satanists doing that? Who stole the Eucharist? Who was going to desecrate it? Anything at all to them?
Well, they claimed that there was a letter written to them by one of the bishops, and charges were brought against him if he stole the Eucharist. He denied that it was stolen. But how do you get it as a satanic coven? How did you get the Eucharist if you didn't steal it? And so they claim they didn't have a stolen host. But, how can you believe them? Satan was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. So if you're taking the title Satanist, you can't convince me that you're telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to ask as well, because since we last spoke, well, the first time we spoke now must have been, what, a year and a half ago, maybe, or something. You gave 4 hours of your time getting into a lot of detail with your time as High Wizard and all these rock stars and celebrities. And I have to admit, in the last 18 months since you knocked off some scales from the eyes, and I haven't had the most sheltered life at all, but it was like all of a sudden it's Jeffrey Epstein, it's P. Diddy, and it's all these other ones associated. You're starting to see more and more how much it probably is real. And then that movie Sound of Freedom with Jim Caviezel and Mel Gibson backed it up and things to raise awareness of really modern day slavery as child trafficking, human trafficking, and things like that. And I just kind of sense like there's a powder keg of information about to explode, and they're trying so hard to keep these things under wraps because it goes to the highest levels in society. Do you get a sense that the light is going to expel that darkness into the public eye anytime soon?
I think it's funny because I've been exposing the darkness for 18 years. And for years, so many people came out against me that, oh, this stuff doesn't happen. This isn't real. Like, I revealed black masses over 10 years ago, and people didn't believe me that they were real, that they don't really happen anywhere. I've never heard of them, so they're not legitimate. I revealed satanic abortions. Oh, that's not real. Satanists don't do that. They're totally against those kind of things. You know, it's like if you look up the Satanic Temple's website, the list of things they believe in, the number one thing, the first thing they believe in is a woman's right to an abortion on demand. And that if you live in a state that does not allow abortion, you can join their website. And then when you go to your abortion, before the abortion and after it, they have a list of prayers that you're to pray. And that makes it a religious freedom act. And you're allowed to get it done because of that, because you've made it a satanic sacrifice. You know, so it's like I revealed abortion being a satanic sacrifice. People didn't believe that. I revealed black masses happening all around the world. People didn't believe that. And then they started happening in public. I revealed that satanic conventions happen. People didn't believe that either. And we've had two Satan cons here in the United States, one in Arizona like 3 or 4 years ago, and one in Boston, and that was like 2 years ago. And it's like I revealed sex trafficking, human trafficking. I've been doing that for years. People didn't believe that until The Sound of Freedom came out. Or I revealed all the Satanism within the music industry and movies and Hollywood. And people didn't believe that until Jeffrey Epstein and P. Diddy and all the other artists. My wife says the more stuff that appears in the news about either blatant Satanism or sex trafficking or rock stars and what they're involved in, the more legitimate you look. Because I've been talking about it for 18 years, and for 18 years, people have been saying that stuff's not true. And now it turns out it all is true.
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more you're getting confirmations, shall we say, that everything you've been saying, more and more people are aware of it. And do you think more will come of that in terms of things finally being revealed or anything? Do you think they'll keep doing what they're doing as time goes on? Or, I mean, is there any way of knowing from that background if things were going to get exposed, if things weren't going the right way as you would expect?
When I first started saying that black masses were real and this is what it looks like and this is what they do and this is why they do it, the blowback was incredible. Most people said, I've never heard of it, so it's not real. And I was like, before there was bacteria, people had never heard of that either. Before, we knew what viruses were, no one had heard of those either. There's so many things. Before we heard of germs, no one had heard of those either. There's so many things that just because you haven't heard of it doesn't make it any less real. And people would fight me tooth and nail, like, I've never heard of a black mass. Catholic mass is all I've ever heard of. That's all that exists. That's all that's there. You're making stuff up. Okay, so when Miraculous Metal Pendant of Power came out, it was learned that 23 black masses, this was as of like 2 years ago, 23 black masses took place in San Francisco. 2 or 3 have taken place in Oklahoma City. One took place in Arizona. One took place in Boston. But that's almost 30 black masses in the public square where anybody can find them. yet people are telling me they don't happen and they're not real. And they're happening in public. There was one, honey, did the Black Mass, was that this year or last year when it got canceled? It was last year because it was Kamala Harris was there the day before. That there was a Black Mass in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was advertised, and it got advertised at the local middle school and high school. Come join us at such and such dance hall for a Black Mass. And they had they canceled it because they couldn't get a consecrated host.
Right.
And they were advertising it, and they said that Kamala Harris was going to be there the night before, and that she was there the night before, but there was no Black Mass that night. And then the next night was the Black Mass that canceled because they didn't have a consecrated host. And people have asked me, what difference does it make if it doesn't have a consecrated host? It's like, well, the whole point of having a Black Mass is to mock the Catholic Mass. And they mock it. The biggest amount of mockery is because they have a consecrated host that they will use to desecrate during their Black Mass. They don't have the consecrated host. There's nothing to desecrate, and they'll cancel it.
Hmm. But what I find something there, it was years ago, it was a lady that said to me as I joined the lay community for a year of discernment 20 years ago. I've heard back then, like, how if you had 50 Eucharists, like the hosts on a table, only one was consecrated by a priest. The Satanist who had the power to know would walk in and pick up the one every single time that was consecrated. But she says, but think of the good that God can do through that, as we know, testimony with yourself, obviously. But if people are in that dark side, have got such an openness to the spiritual, even though they're on the wrong side, God meets them where they're at. And there's a lot of chance of conversion. And she says, think about it. How many Satanists really do have that belief and faith that that is truly the presence of Jesus Christ? And how many Catholics truly believe it? It makes you wonder. I mean, do you see a spiritual side of things where this is where the Catholics are weak with the faith, where the Satanists are strong?
I I was in an interview and I said, I think it was a Pew survey that came out years ago, and it said that only 15% of Catholics believe in the true presence. And the guy was like, yeah, that sounds about right. As if there's 1.3 billion Catholics in the world. So what's 15% of that? And it was like 225 million, something like that. And I said, okay. Well, I said, do you know who believes 100% in the Eucharist? He's like, what? I said, Satan, demons. I said, when a satanic coven steals a host, do they steal the Baptist Wonder Bread?
Hmm.
Do they go to one of the 66,000 Protestant denominations that wouldn't give a rip flying squirrel if somebody walked in, grabbed a handful of their unconsecrated hosts, or not even a handful? They grabbed the Saborum and ran out the door with it. The only thing the Baptists would care about is getting back the $300 Saborum. They don't. If you dump their host on the ground, they don't care. They don't mean anything to them. It's just a piece of unleavened bread that tastes disgusting.
Hmm.
And yet in our church, if somebody grabbed that entire Saborum, the entire church would beat them down to get the host back. You're not getting out the door with that Saborum. You could get out the door with the Saborum before you get out the door with the host. And we care about what our host is. We know it's the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ. And the Satanists know that. Satan knows that. Demons know that. And 85% of Catholics don't have a clue. How is it that the enemy knows and the good team doesn't know?
Well,
But the Satanists that know don't know it's the body and blood of Christ. They know that it's the consecrated host because they feel revulsion, nausea, sickness, or hatred or anger when they touch that one, and they feel normal when they touch the others.
Ah,
They're not touching the one that they know is God because they don't know that. They know that it's one of these five symptoms they're experiencing, and they don't have those five symptoms when they touch the other hosts.
right, okay. Never heard it that way before. That's interesting.
But if it was explained to them, the one you feel that makes you feel sick and nauseous, the reason it makes you feel that way is because that host is made of pure love. And love comes from God. And you're a Satanist. So love to you makes you feel that way. If you would like to feel it for what it really is, you have to not be a Satanist anymore. You have to feel the real, true presence of God and feel the love of God. And if they felt that, that would be the greatest feeling of all time. And I don't think they'd go back to being a Satanist.
Mm. Why do they think they're in that way of life? I mean, I've heard your testimony. I know obviously your journey, and it was the attraction of magic, and it was step by step, drip feeding until you weren't sensitive to the shock of things or that as years went on. But is that the same with the majority of them, or are they coming from a bad background, a woundedness? Or are they actually born into it and that's how they're raised? I mean, they just need to know that love. I mean, does that mean how open they actually could be if they just had their conscience corrected?
I think that everybody is on their own path. So there's a different path for everyone. And some people are born into it. Some people find it because they're broken. Some people are looking for something different. Some people are looking for the right religion or the right religion for right now. And they find this left handed path. Um, I tell people in the kitchen of life, God is the conventional oven, Satan is the microwave. So if you want something right now, God does things in his perfect timing. And if you're not meant to have it, you won't get it. But Satan, he's willing to work with you. And Satan lets you know that, if you worship me and do what I ask you to do, I'll give you that. Now, he's not going to give you exactly what you ask for. You want $1 billion, he'll give you maybe 1 million. And if you want $1 billion, now, if you just were happy with $10 and you got $1 million, woohoo, you won. But if you're wanting $1 billion and you get 1 million, that's like wanting a steak and getting a glass of water. This is not the same thing. This isn't what I asked for. But he's like the father of lies. What's a funny title for him is Beelzebub. Do you know what that title means?
I can't recall. Probably heard it sometime.
Beelzebub is the Lord of the Flies. But flies, this is in the definition, flies are attracted to dung or to poop. So calling him Beelzebub or the Lord of the Flies means you're calling him a pile of poop, and the flies are attracted to that. So Beelzebub is really an insulting title for him because you're calling him a pile of poop. And as such, he's the Lord of the Flies.
Makes sense. He's full of it.
Something to just ponder on. This is in the United States. I put out a CD set in 2015. I recorded it in the week of Thanksgiving 2015, and then it officially came out in December 2015. It was a double CD set, and it was called Abortion is a Satanic Sacrifice. When that came out, we had shut down 24 abortion mills with our plan of shutting them down. We have 4 steps, and at that time, there were 865 abortion mills in the United States. And that was just Planned Parenthood. I mean, there are other abortion mills in the US, but Planned Parenthood's the biggest one. And they had 865 abortion mills. So that came out, like I said, in December 2015. So December of this year will be 10 years that that's been out. In 2018, I put out my book. The book has a little bit more information in it than the CD set, but basically it's the same thing. Like, you could play the CD set and read along in the book. But, and that's been out for about 7 years. So recently, we looked up how many abortion mills there are in the United States of just Planned Parenthood. Now, keep in mind that the methods are to have an exorcism by Catholic priests out in front of the abortion mill somewhere, to have a Catholic mass said out in front of the abortion mill, to have prayer and fasting done, and for you to go to the abortion mill and pray, or to have a Eucharistic procession with an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe and people walking behind praying rosaries. So the grace generated from all of that, then that's happening all over the United States. How many abortion mills do you think we could shut down in 10 years?
Hmm. Yeah.
Take a guess. There was 865. So 10 years later, how many are there now?
Closed or open?
How many of them closed?
2,000?
We couldn't have 2,000 closed if we only had 865 to start with.
Oh, sorry, right. I've misunderstood. I don't know. Hopefully 100.
We've had 265 close.
Wow, excellent.
We only have 600 left. So going by that, in another 20 years, they'll almost all be closed. We just had the biggest one in the United States closed. It was in Houston. It did something like 10,000 abortions a year. The average abortion mill murders 1,500 babies a year. So going by that, if you look at how many abortion mills we shut down, 265 times 1,500, the number for that is like 2,500 shy of 400,000. My methods are saving 400,000 babies a year.
Praise God.
My judgment day may not be as bad as I thought it was going to be. And it's an amazing feeling to know that I'm saving 400,000 babies a year. Now, these methods might be all God's methods, but I'm the conduit that brought it to the world. I'm the one that told everybody, these are the methods that work. People did them, and they're working. And we've shut down 265 abortion mills with these methods. You know, another 10 years, it's another 265. Another 10 years, that's another 265. That should almost be 265 times 3. What is that? 780?
Yeah,
800?
I get it.
800?
Yep.
You know, that leaves 65. You know, that'll be like another 1 or 2 years. So possibly in my lifetime, I will see the end of abortion.
Please God.
And if the end of abortion happened in the United States, we would get gifts and blessings the world has never seen. God would be so happy with us. Imagine if the world stopped doing abortions. And this might turn back into the Garden of Eden.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely things catching up with that now that you're bringing it into topic, because I wasn't thinking about that, but now that you've brought it in quite significantly, there's a couple of things that come to mind straight away, at least here in the UK, Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland. The first thing is, like, just a couple of months ago, I called it the darkest week in living memory or history of the UK. And the same week, they're processing through the votes for partial birth abortion for the first time in the UK, but also the same time they put through to the House of Lords for further debate. In the same week was assisted dying, obviously assisted suicide, which is still being debated right now. So it's all this culture of death still. But what's even more in terms of the battlefront, and this is where it's like, is it just ignorant politicians and lawmakers, or is it there's a spiritual element to this on both sides? Because now we have buffer zones. I don't know what it's like in America, but here in the UK, legally there are now buffer zones in place. And a lady I've met a few times and interviewed, Isabel von Spruce, she was arrested for praying silently in her head while she was praying silently outside the abortion clinic. You know, and she's one of the members of the pro-life charity over here that do March for Life and things like that. But all this buffer zone and the laws coming in, it's like they're doing everything they can to stop the effect of praying people trying to end it. And even silent prayer in your head can get you arrested. What do you think of that?
Was that the grandmother that got arrested?
Yeah, that was the other one. That was the recent one in Scotland.
You know, we heard about her and thought we should donate to her legal fund because, um, you know, a grandmother can't be swimming in money. And to get arrested for doing something that's not a crime. You know, you could walk anywhere in Scotland and pray, and it's not a crime. But suddenly you do it in front of an abortion mill and it's a crime. It's like, that should make you think. So God's not allowed in that building, and he's not allowed outside of it either. But he's allowed everywhere else. What does that tell you about your building?
Mm.
Um, in the States, we don't have laws like that, but we have other laws. We have one called FACE. It's like front access something something. I don't know. But it is FACE, and it means if you block the entrance of an abortion mill, you can be arrested for that, and it's a federal crime. I think you can be in prison for it. We just had a bunch of pro-lifers that were pardoned by Donald Trump. And they spent like a year and a half in prison
Mm.
for doing nothing, for being outside an abortion mill praying rosaries when the police were called, but they weren't doing anything. They weren't causing trouble. They were just praying. And I think in Canada they have a buffer zone. You can't be within like 1,000 feet of an abortion mill and be praying. And again, so I can pray everywhere I want to, but not within 1,000 feet of a certain building. What does that tell you about that building? That God's not there? Well, why don't you want God there?
Yeah, exactly. Because of the act. But remember, they were
Right,
praying silently in their head. They weren't even speaking loud.
right.
It's still enough for an arrest. But before I forget again, I know we've got. I mean, that's part of the spiritual warfare for sure. But there's another thing I was going to ask earlier, then I forgot, but it's come back to me. I know the great witness of faith and forgiveness. and the true cost of martyrdom to inspire many millions around the world. I'm speaking, of course, of the death of Charlie Kirk that happened, and the powerful statements in both speeches that came from his wife, and to see that way of faith. But then it came out that, I mean, some say he was going to the Catholic Church with his wife, who is Catholic. He was praying the Rosary. Some reckon he could have eventually converted to the Catholic Church soon enough. But with that said or not, he was very much a courageous Christian who loved his faith. And I remember at one of these college campuses, one of the videos, someone was trying to right there and then do some sort of curse, and he just started covering himself in the armour of God and quoting the scriptures, rebuking it in the name of Jesus. So this man was right there doing what he should be doing. But then there's reports coming out that a week or two or so beforehand, people were paying for witches to do curses on him and things like that. And I'm like, I don't know how that sits with me. Even if they did it, this is a man filled with faith and he's on the war front with it. Surely they would have had um, no power over him for that to even be the case. Well, I mean, what do you make of that? What can you tell us based on your experience and both sides?
Okay, I have a test, and now this is going to cause me to get bombarded by emails from Scotland and Ireland and England. But it's a test that can tell you if you have a curse. It's a 30-day test. But the basis of how it works, if you have a curse, well, let's see, it works like this. People think of a curse and they think of somebody cursed me, they said some words and that cursed me. That's not how that works. Or they think of the proper way. Somebody has an altar. It has 2 or 3 candles on it. It has a skull. It has a parchment. It has a quill. That basically means a piece of paper on a pen. Um, and there's incense. And then there's certain other accoutrements, like you have wolfsbane or batwing or something insane. Crazy names doesn't mean it's literally wolfsbane or batwing. But all those things are used in spell making, but that's not how a spell is really made. A spell is made when a Satanist or a witch prays to Satan to attach a demon to somebody. So if that demon goes to you, say, I'm hired to put a spell on you, and I used to be the high wizard. So I would make a spell. It's a one-shot thing. Demon goes to you, sees you're in a state of grace, and he leaves. You don't get a curse. I do a tri-curse because they really dislike you a lot, and they paid me, say the first one was $100,000. This one they pay me $1 million. I do a tri-curse. Demon comes to you today at noon. Oh, you're in a state of grace? He leaves. He comes back in 3 weeks, but he comes back at midnight. Oh, you're still in a state of grace, so he leaves. Then he waits 6 weeks and he comes back at 4 p.m., but you're still in a state of grace, and he leaves. And I don't get the success of that one. But let's say their hate for you is immense, and they pay me $10 million to put a hex on you. The demon goes to you, sees that you're in a state of grace, but he knows that an abortion was done to do this hex. So he says, oh, you're in a state of grace? No problem. I'll wait. And he just hangs around, hangs around, and hangs around. You're the greatest Catholic in the world. You never sin. But he doesn't care because time to him stands still. He doesn't experience time like we do. So he just stands around, kicks the ground for a little bit, studies the worms, watches the sun set and rise and set and rise and set and rise. Changing of the seasons, he doesn't care. But one day, you sinned. And then he attaches to you. And you may not know you're cursed for 30 years. But after 30 years, you realize there's a pattern in the tragedies of your life. And it's not just your life, it's your kids' lives, it's your grandkids' lives. And you wonder if you have a curse. So you contact me, and I give you this curse test that takes 30 days to do. But at the end of it, you know for certain that you have a curse. And now we have to work on either breaking it or finding out where it came from. And either one can be done. I recommend trying to break it first. But 90% of the world thinks they have a curse, and 90% of the world does not have a curse. People will take this test convinced that they're cursed. And then it turns out they don't have a curse. I tell people, your options are you have a curse, God's trying to bring you closer to Him, or this is just the way your life is rolling right now. Bad things happen to everybody. It doesn't mean you're cursed. And sometimes you've walked far away from God, and God wants to bring you back. So He lets some bad stuff happen to you, knowing that with enough bad things, you'll turn back. But everybody's brain goes to the I have a curse point, and that's all they can think about for sometimes decades before they find somebody that has a test like I do and can tell them one way or the other. But they seem lost and confused when they find out they're not cursed because they had put all their eggs into that basket. Like I said, before we got on the air, they're convinced that Uncle Bob cursed them because he was mean to them one day, and then their whole life went to hell after that. And it had to be Uncle Bob. And then after they take my test, they don't have a curse. And Uncle Bob didn't curse them. And he was like, "What do I do now?" I said, "You need to go forgive Uncle Bob
Mm.
and take care of whatever that relationship is. Because he didn't do whatever you've conjured up in your mind that he did to you, he's innocent of."
Yeah, I think a lot of times it can be a great trauma. If someone has done something bad to you, like molest you, abuse you, attacked you, and it's one off or many times, that formative years, that's why I think a lot of the times it goes back to childhood, especially for most people. But it's the wound that needs to be dealt with a lot of the times, and people might mix it up with the curses and things like that. But how do you get rid of that video playing and over, that anger, the emotions and things? And I think the biggest thing dealing with that deliverance of it also to say would be the power of forgiveness for sure. Uh, but yeah, I've touched on that before on the channel. But yeah, what we'll do then, Zachary, before the end of the video, give us the details of like your website address, your books or that, how to contact you for all this stuff, and make sure everyone's get access to getting it. It'll be in the description box on the video below on the channel.
Well, I can have my wife send you all that stuff, but I can tell you it's my phone number, and it's the same number for my WhatsApp, and or if you call me on a regular phone. I don't know my own country code, so I don't know how
Well,
you do that, but
I wouldn't advise giving me your number in case thousands of people end up watching this video like the previous ones. Maybe just the website.
my website is allsaintsministry.org. My email address is mysticforgod@yahoo.com. But if you go to my website, my phone number is right there,
Oh well.
and I put my phone number in pretty much every interview I do. I am here to help you, and that help is hard to come by if you don't have my phone number. And I respond to WhatsApp, I respond to text messages and to email. But you'll have to be patient because right now I have around 1,365 emails, 142 texts, and as of yesterday, we caught my WhatsApp messages up to being current, and then 13 more people sent me a WhatsApp message. But they're caught up as of right now.
Good, good. I don't know how you do that. That would drive me crazy. But I suppose it's a
Well,
ministry, isn't it? You're doing your part.
do you have a regular job on top of this one, or is this
Yes.
your only job?
Yeah, I have a full time job as well.
This is my full time job.
Mm.
This is beyond full time because I do 8 hours a day, um, at least 5 days a week, sometimes six. And every once in a while, I do some stuff on Sunday. top of this, I do consulting with priests, sometimes a bishop, sometimes a cardinal. Not yet with the Pope, but I'm waiting. You never know. And I currently know 4 or 5 cardinals. I know Cardinal Burke, Cardinal Dolan, Cardinal Maffei, and Cardinal Simone. So 4.
Oh, some good company there.
Yeah, I like them. I met Cardinal Dolan in 2016 at the March for Life, Washington, D.C. And I've heard a lot of people say negative things about him, but he seemed like a good guy when I met him. I mean, he was very receptive to me and to my CD set. And I thought, oh, this guy doesn't seem like he's the bad guy everybody paints the picture of him as. And then he did a Eucharistic procession through New York, and like with thousands of people behind him. I was like, come on, you're walking with Jesus out in public. How can you be the bad guy?
Yeah, true. I think it depends on who you're listening to as well, isn't it, these days on YouTube?
Right, right. I mean, there's, depending on who you listen to, I'm a holy man of God, or I'm a con man who is just trying to get rich. Now, if I'm a con man just trying to get rich, I'm doing this the wrong way because I'm nowhere close to rich. You know, I'm lucky that I can pay my bills every month. You know, it's speaking of that, if anybody would like to donate money to me, I have a fundraiser on my website. You can donate through PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, or you can send me a check or a money order or cash or gold doubloons. I'm open. You know, however you want to do that. You know, they told me at the bank that people would have to get permission to donate money to my actual bank account. That they would need like a permission slip basically from the bank. And I was like, so drug dealers can't just wire $50 million into my account? I'm like, no, that's not allowed. I was like, no one's ever done it or tried to, but I'd like for people to feel open that they can. You know, if somebody wants to donate $50 million to me, feel free. You know, but you can't go through my bank. You'll have to go through PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App because my bank won't allow it.
Unreal. Well, see, on that note, that might bring me into the bridge into the other thing I was wanting to talk to you about. Um, Last week in the UK, the Prime Minister, he announced digital ID is going to be mandatory within the next coming few years of this administration, which runs out in 2029. And by then, we're going to have digital ID. And if you don't have it, you don't work. It's as simple as that. That's literally how he said it. But now Europe at the exact same time is bringing in this biometrical system where unless you have your face scanned and your fingerprints taken at the machines in the airport, you don't travel anywhere in Europe. Then, when we look back to the last 5 years of announcements from different world leaders or big billionaires all sitting together at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos every year, you're getting carbon footprint trackers, vaccine statuses. All this is coming into this one digital ID. And it might not be the mark of the beast, but it's certainly got the principles and the fact that this is going to control you so much with everything, like it is in China right now with the social credit system, that it will control whether you can buy or sell or not. And I'm just thinking, I know from your past, with the satanic side of things, the Church of Satan. I mean, it was like big money for spells and the jet set lifestyle, and all the rest of it, and all these billionaires and famous people and all the rest of it. When it comes to you seeing this globalist cabal basically coming together, and it makes everyone think, like, finally, after all this time where everyone was predicting one time or another that when this was going to happen, Now the technology's here. Now we can clearly see things that make sense to how that would be. Where was it in that past life of yours, especially at the Church of Satan at that level? Was the Antichrist the topic of discussion at times? Was there something more like this is what we need to bring in? Where is it the point where do you think we're in that time now, and does the Church of Satan get a lot to do with it?
Well, the Satanic Coven, the two covens that I work for, the first one was an OTO coven, so Ordine Templi Orientis. My second coven that I worked for was the World Church of Satan, or Satan's World Church. Two different names, same coven. But the Church of Satan is usually used as an umbrella term for anybody that was a Satanist, but there actually is a Church of Satan in the United States. And so I didn't actually work with the Church of Satan as far as an actual entity group. I worked with the Church of Satan as an overall umbrella
Right.
of that Satanists belong to the Church of Satan. When I was a high wizard, there's millions of people that are members. Um, One day, this guy was running through the halls of one of our offices, and he's carrying a bunch of papers, and he's looking nervous and frazzled. And I was like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And he goes, "Nothing that you can help me with." I said, "Well, tell me, what's the problem?" And he said, "Steve is sick with the flu. Like, he's down for the count. He's out, and he's got a job he does every night, and we need somebody else to do it, and nobody else can do it." I said, "What's the job? How hard is it?" He goes, "You just got to make some phone calls." I said, "Oh, I can do that. When I got to make them?" He goes, "Starting at midnight tonight." Well, you start making them about 9 p.m., and then you probably will be done about midnight. I said, "That's all I got to do?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I can do that. Give me the list." So he gives me a list. It's like 24 people. I was like, "Well, I didn't know I signed up for this, but okay, 24 people, I can do that." And so I started calling these people. And all you have to do is call. It's one in each time zone. There's 24 time zones.
Right.
So one in each time zone to remind them to do the Black Mass tonight. And it's an extended Black Mass. So a regular Black Mass can take 20 minutes. A Black Mass, if you're trying to make a show out of it, make it like theater, that could last an hour. Well, this one lasts 3 hours. It starts at midnight, which is the witching hour, and it ends at 3 a.m., which is the devil's hour. And you do this extended Black Mass to consecrate all of the day's abortions in your time zone to Satan and the Antichrist. And I was like, oh, that's different. So I'm calling, and all 24, the people that answered the phone were like, "Where's Steve? He's got the flu." "Oh, Steve's such a nice man. We'll light candles for him, or we'll burn incense for him, or nobody says they're going to pray for him because we're all Satanists, but they're all feeling bad for this guy Steve, and they do whatever it is that they're going to do for him." And then okay, so that was happening the entire time I was a high wizard. That would have been from 1987 to 1999, and that's every night from midnight to 3 a.m. across all 24 time zones. Black masses are conducted to consecrate the day's abortions in that time zone to Satan and the Antichrist. Now, that I don't know how long that's been going on, but I know that I think it was last year. Last year at Halloween, or it might have been the year before that, but it was at Halloween. There was a satanic group here in the United States and a satanic coven in Brazil that did um, a black mass welcoming the Antichrist.
Yeah, I remember that.
The Antichrist is already here, but they're doing a black mass to welcome him to the world. So he's here, he's alive and well and active. I was at a conference in July. It was titled, it was like the Worldwide Deliverance and Exorcism Conference, and it featured myself, Father Zeta, who's an exorcist in Pennsylvania, um, Monsignor Esif, who's an exorcist, I think also in Pennsylvania, but he was there via Zoom, and Cardinal Simone, who is a 96-year-old cardinal that has the ability to read souls, and he's also an exorcist, and he trains exorcists in Rome. So we tried to get some other exorcists here in the States, and our bait for trying to get them was to tell them Cardinal Simone will be there, because so many of them have been trained by him that they wanted to go, but they didn't have time. So their schedules wouldn't permit. But during that talk, during the Q&A, somebody asked me, what's my opinion? Who did I think the Antichrist was? One, they asked, did I know who the Antichrist was? And I said, no, I don't know. And then they asked me, what's my opinion? I said, well, this is what I've heard about the Antichrist. I've heard that he's homosexual and that he's extremely charismatic and that he's very popular and very likable and everybody would like him. I said, when Father Jim Blunt, 1 or 2 years ago, got bilocated to the Antichrist's office, he didn't know how he got there, but he saw the Antichrist and he was identified as the Antichrist. And the Antichrist saw him, and they're walking around each other in the office, looking at each other, the Antichrist wondering how he got there, and him even wondering how he got there. And then he was taken out of that and taken back to where he was at. And he was told that he's not allowed to reveal who the Antichrist is. There's a certain time that it will be revealed to the world, but he's not allowed to do it. So he has to keep it a secret. But according to Father Jim Blunt, everybody would know this person if they saw him. Like if you saw him, if you heard him, whatever, you would know this is instantly. And so I told them, so the Antichrist is supposed to be homosexual, extremely charismatic, friendly, popular, well known, and according to Father Blunt, everybody would know him. My educated guess about who that is Barack Obama. Because Barack Obama is gay, he's very charismatic, he's well liked by most people, and he's well known by the world. Like everybody, not everybody knows who the Pope is. Protestants think the Pope is the Antichrist, but not everybody. When Pope Francis was the Pope, there were Protestants that have no idea what he looked like. There's people now, I don't know what the current Pope looks like. So we've got popes that nobody knows who they are, but everybody knows who Barack Obama is, and everybody knows what he looks like. And then somebody got mad because I said that, and they filed complaints against me for saying that. I'm like, that's not church teaching. You're getting mad over my opinion.
Mm. I was surprised to hear that name right enough, but I know there's a lot of videos out there about him and Michael. I don't want to get into that though, but I'm aware why you would say it.
There's somebody told me there's a video of Michael Obama, dancing on the Ellen DeGeneres show
Yeah.
from a few years ago, and that she's wearing a miniskirt, and you can see stuff under the skirt moving, like a natural woman wouldn't have that,
Hmm.
but a man wearing a dress might. I've never seen the video, so I don't know. I haven't seen that part. I would need to have my wife watch it. I don't know if she would, but it would be interesting to know, did Barack Obama marry Michael Obama? In the States, we can't even prove where Barack Obama was born. Was he born in Kenya? Was he born in Hawaii? We don't know. Um, was he born? Is he an American? We don't know that either. Um, and we don't know. There's no pictures of Michelle Obama pregnant. And then their kids don't look like either one of them, but their kids do look like a woman that used to visit the White House.
Right.
So who knows?
Yeah, well, time might tell, I suppose, but we're in such prophetic times, and that's what I cover quite a lot in the channel, have done for some time. And yeah, I mean, we're at the end of the popes on the list of Malachi's list of popes, the end of Garabandal's few popes from the 60s. This Jubilee year seeing so many things coming together. And Russia and Kiev was quoted as part of the final solution of the Secret of Fatima, according to Father Malachi Martin, who read it many years ago. He said so in 1997 on an interview. I've got all these quotes. We're seeing mass Mohammedans into Europe as the prophecies foretold. And we're talking multiple Catholic prophecies of everything merging together right now. But at the same time, YouGov, which is the UK government's side of things for statistics on data, do you know this very Jubilee year as well, with all the bad stuff going on in the world, as prophecy is written it would be, I see, as they're stating, the work of the Holy Spirit, because with all this happening, that's all on the surface. Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more, as they say, it's in the Bible. And we're seeing record numbers of conversions of adults into the faith, record number of baptisms. Apparently, since 2018, attendance in the Catholic Church here in the UK, at least, has quadrupled. And the biggest amount coming in are Gen Z young men. And it's saying for the first time since the Reformation, 500 years ago, for the first time since the Reformation, there are now more Catholics going to church than Anglicans.
Wow.
So the Holy Spirit is definitely moving. The light is breaking through the darkness more and more.
There's a record number of Muslims converting, and they're converting after having either dreams of
Yes,
Jesus and Mary or having Jesus and Mary show up to them.
there's a big harvest there.
And then a few years ago, then there's been multiple stories like this one, but there was a family, it was a little girl, like she's under 7 years old, and her mom and dad. And the Muslims threatened to kill their daughter if they don't convert to being Muslim. And they refused to convert. They said, "You're going to kill us anyway. We're not converting." And so they decided that the little girl would be killed. And the Muslim tried to kill the daughter, and the daughter was laughing and took off running. And she's laughing the whole time. And she looks like she's playing with somebody, but all you can see is the little girl. And one of the parents asked, "Honey, who are you playing with?" And she's pointing to the people she's playing with. And she says, "They're angels. And we're playing tag." And she's running around. She avoids being touched, but then I think she gets touched by one of them. So now she's chasing them. And these people, the Muslims with their swords, can't catch her. They can't kill her. And eventually they catch her and they cut off her arm. And she's laughing about it. And she's bleeding to death. And she's just laughing. It's just she's having a great time. And she's still playing with the angels. And then she stops playing. She gets a sleepy look on her face, and she said, "Mommy, I have to go now. I'll see you later." And she laid down to take a nap, and she died. And that converted the Muslims on the spot. They saw that she didn't feel any pain after having her arm cut off, and she was playing with angels. The angels showed up for this little girl, and I don't think the parents were murdered. I think they were allowed to live because there was no Muslim there to kill them.
Right. I was speaking to a man a few months ago on a retreat. He was Lebanese, living in London, really high flying type job in the financial world and things like that, all around the planet. But even he says he was aware of a village in Pakistan. An entire village had the same dream about Jesus on the very same evening, and the whole people, everyone in the village converted the next day. Hearing about stuff like that quite often, different places. It's a good note maybe to finish on with a bit of Holy Spirit talk based on things that we've covered in that. But there's a real sense then if you believe, like, because I'm aware of, I know it's public knowledge because it was in Christine Watkins' book and she's been on the channel a couple of times, like yourself. And obviously you gave her information there too. But, like, I mean, they are trying to, like, that welcoming and thing, is that like welcoming in the Antichrist, that black mass you mentioned? Is that because they want to do it for show and belief and hope he's coming, or is it like he's confirmed this year because he's came and gave us a visit?
I'm not sure. I mean, the Satanic Coven in Brazil is different from the Satanic Coven here, and they're not working together as far as I know. And I don't know if they got the idea independently or just because they're evil groups. Satan is telling them you should do this.
Mm,
Um, the Antichrist, though, has been here for a while. So I don't know why they're just now deciding to welcome him unless it's about to be his time. Now, the Satanists generally feel that hell is not the hell we have the description for in the Bible, and it's not the description that Catholic seers have given us, and people that have died have gone to hell and seen these atrocious, horrible acts. They don't think that hell is a bad place. And they believe that if I'm a Satanist here and I do Satan's bidding here, I'll have a high position in hell. It's like you're going to be very disappointed and sorrowful for eternity for choosing that route. But they don't believe that. And they believe that if they welcome the Antichrist now, if they do what he wants now, that they'll be given a position of authority or authority or power and prestige when they're in hell. And it's just they've been fooled, and they're reaping a reward, but it's the reward of sin is death.
mm. So maybe wrap it up because I know we've hit the hour mark now. I'm just trying to get my head round about the idea because I think I may have read it in the book that I think you gave a little more. And again, it is public knowledge, so I'm not saying nothing that's not been written or that. But like one time, Satan came as a man into the office building and all that. So I'm thinking, like, see how like certain chosen souls, like visionaries or the saints and mystics, holy people who might see the angels or have an apparition of our Blessed Mother coming. Did all these Satanists have a focus to the point where they would see the demons, even in human form, as an angel of light, only it's demonic? Do they get to see certain things like they've been assigned a mission to do for that, just as Our Lady would give a mission?
No, most Satanists don't. Most of them don't even believe that Satan exists. Like the Satanic Temple, they don't worship Satan as a person or an entity. They worship the idea of Satan, like he was the rebellion in the Bible. And so they don't believe Satan's a real person.
Wow.
They believe in the idea of rebellion and questioning and believing and putting your trust in science and things you can see. And they believe that when they die, there's no place to go. You're not going to hell when you die. You're just going to die and just cease to exist. And I believe that if you showed them something tangible and real, that would probably cause their conversion because they would see that that side is real. It's legitimate. If demons really exist, then that means Satan exists. And if Satan's and demons exist, God exists. And I think that would cause their conversion.
Well, it almost sounds, I mean, because you're trying to think, are these murderous, evil, angry people that will do anything because of the evil that they're taking part in? Like, can you trust yourself alone with a human being who's in that way? But then when you hear things like that, it's almost like, although for all the bad that they do, it's like there's a childlike innocence in them with the point how easily they could be converted. I find that, try to work that one out from what you're saying.
I think it would have to be something monumental, like the examination, not the examination, the what's it called, illumination of conscience. Where everybody sees at the same time. If I died right now, this is where I would go, and they see that hell is legit. Where they could see you could have gone to heaven or you could have gone to purgatory, but instead you're going to hell. And seeing these things as being real, that could cause conversion. Or there was a famous story a few years ago that there was like a Swedish or Norwegian death metal band that decided they were going to study Catholicism because they wanted to better blaspheme the Catholic Church in their music and songs. And so they researched, pardon this expression, they researched the hell out of the Catholic Church. And instead of better being able to blaspheme the Catholic Church, the entire band converted to being Catholics. That'll get you. That'll teach you. Um, so, I mean, they tried to do it for a nefarious reason, and it worked against them. And I've had people tell me at my conferences, I've studied all the world's religions, and I've decided to be a Christian. And it's like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I said, there's 66,000 Protestant denominations. If you spent one day studying all of them, you'd have to live to be like 143 years old. So you didn't study all the world's religions. And if you're going to study the major ones, you could spend 2,000 years studying the Catholic Church and you wouldn't get it all.
Mm, amen.
And I said, if you decided, I said, why don't you become Catholic and then study all the world's religions? Because if you do that, you'll find that you're in the right one. I said, why not join the one that Jesus started? I had a woman tell me that she believed that the gates of hell had prevailed against the Catholic Church. And I said, all right, so is Jesus a liar or is he not God? She goes, I'm not saying either one of those things. I said, well, Jesus said the gates of hell would not prevail against his church. And if you're saying that they did prevail against his church, then either he's a liar and because he was just proven wrong, or he's not God because if he was God, he would know better, or he wouldn't have made that statement. And she hung up on me. And then she called me back and said, I didn't realize it was Jesus that said that. I guess I take it back. The gates of hell did not prevail.
Well, at least she was humble.
Well, I've had other people that said everything but that. And when I say, are you saying this? She's like, no. Like, but you are saying that. You're just not saying those words. Like, she's not Catholic because of all the scandals in the Catholic Church. And I was like, so you're saying the gates of hell prevailed against the Catholic Church? No. Like, that is what you're saying. You won't join the Catholic Church because of all the sin and the scandals. Right. I said, so the gates of hell prevailed? No. Like, I'm not getting what you're saying then. Because if the gates of hell did not prevail, you'd be Catholic. As if you basically made a man bigger than God. And this is Catholics that are like Catholic and then they leave. And you have to tell them, according to the dogma of the Catholic Church, there's no salvation outside the church. You just excommunicated yourself from the one true church. How are you going to regain salvation? And somebody told me when Pope Francis was Pope that they were going to leave the church until this Pope died. Now, this was way before he got sick. And I said, how do you know that you're not going to die before he dies? And you excommunicated yourself from the church. How is your judgment going to go when God asks you, why did you quit my church? Why did you leave the church? There's no salvation outside the church. So you just quit the church and decided you'd rather go to hell. Well, I was waiting for the Pope to die. Well, he's not dying for another 7 years, but you're dead now. Now what?
Hmm.
It's like you can't let one man get bigger than God.
Nope.
It's like you're Catholic, just wait it out.
Well, obviously, with your side of the faith and that, maybe wrap up this way on a good note, the spiritual side with the faith, because obviously you had an amazing experience that you told us in the original interview with the miraculous medal, Our Lady and Jesus, then going to Mass and adoration, seeing Jesus for a bit and things like that. Where you're at now, all these years later, I mean, if I may ask, what's your spiritual life like? And the fact that you had such an openness to the other spiritual side, do you think that was why it was what happened with Jesus and Mary is because in a way it was your openness to it? And how is that now all these years later in your faith? What's your kind of devotions, your prayer life, your openness now?
I'm on my third 90-day novena to the Chaplet of Our Lady's Tears. We have about almost 3 pages of intentions. So when the prayer starts, I say, this is our 90-day novena to the Chaplet of Our Lady's Tears. This latest one started October 3rd and ends January 1st, 2026, and my wife will read the intentions. She reads 3 pages of intentions, and then we play the chaplet on YouTube. It takes 7 minutes to pray. And we've done that now when this one ends, we'll have been doing it for 270 days. And then at the end of this one, we'll start another one. And some of the intentions stay the same and some of them change. Some of them come true, and so we scratch those off the list and keep going with another list. Also, while we're doing that, we also do at least one novena every 9 days. So at least one. We're doing one now. The last 9 days we did 2. Sometimes during that 9 days we do 3. Sometimes we do 4. And the perfect time for us to do those is when my wife goes and takes the kids to school. We can do 3 rosaries, 3 novenas in that length, and then on her way back we get another one done. But my novenas are the small little prayer, but I don't go by the ones online. They're usually not specific to what exactly I need. So I write my own novena, and then I stick to that for either 9 days, or if it's a 90-day, I do the same prayer for 90 days. But with every novena, I do a 5 decade rosary. So if I'm doing 4 novenas, that's going to be a 20 decade rosary. And I will never turn down a rosary. That's my favorite prayer to do. It's the strongest prayer we have as lay Catholics. The strongest prayer in the world is the Mass. So I've got perpetual masses being said for thousands of people. And my one of my nieces has over 5,000 perpetual masses said for her every year. And I told somebody today that she's going to go kicking and screaming into heaven. And then when she gets there, she'll be like, oh, this wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And how did I get here? Because your Uncle Zach had 5,000 masses a year said for you. Um, she has a questionable life and does questionable things and makes questionable life decisions. And I thought, I got to even that up somehow. I got to do my part. So, I have perpetual masses being said for. But we do masses for everybody that donates money to our ministry, has perpetual Latin masses said for them. Everybody that has ever seen me at a conference or contacted our ministry in any way, like WhatsApp or text or emails or even snail mail, no matter how, phone calls, everything, every person that contacts us in any way, any form or fashion, gets their name put into perpetual Latin masses. And, it's most people don't realize that we do that. And people donated money for me so I could make my books. I thought, how can I reward these people? We originally tried because we did them on ebook on Kindle, and on Kindle they only cost like $3 if you want to buy it. But I did something where I was like, okay, if you donate money for me to get these books, I will make it so that you can get a free ebook on Kindle. And did you know that you cannot get that if you're not in the United States? People donated all over the world. People donated from all over the world. And I found out that we could not Kindle them a book if they're outside the United States.
Oh, that's a shame.
And then I offered to mail them a hard copy of the book. I wouldn't have the books if it wasn't for them. And everybody was like, no, 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 no. You need to sell those and, make the money back and then buy more books. You're not going to do that if you give a free book to everybody that donated money. So I was grateful to them for that, but I was just wishing, why can't I give you something for free? And Amazon made it very difficult because the majority of the money came from outside the US. And I couldn't, even the people here didn't want the Kindle version.
There must be a way around it because obviously we get Kindle in the world, in Europe.
Right. Well, I think it's because the agreement for me to sell my book is with Amazon US.
Ah.
And the Amazon you would have would be Amazon UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have an agreement with Amazon UK. So currently, my prayer life used to be that I would wake up every morning at like 4 a.m. and I would pray a 20 decade rosary that was under my pillow. I had a regular rosary and a 20 decade, and I would do both. And then for some reason, I think it had to do with getting married and getting 3 kids. I am more tired than I used to be, and I can't get up at 4 a.m. anymore. I'm too tired and I sleep the entire night. And I get up when I'm supposed to get up. So we do the rosaries for our novenas, and we do the chaplet to Our Lady's Tears, and we've turned that into a 90-day novena. That now, like I said, we're on our third one. Um, if something happens during the day that we see we should pray for this cause, we do that. I used to love to go to daily adoration. I haven't done that in a long time. I mean, I still go on occasion to adoration, but it's not the daily that I like to do. I used to go to daily mass. Now the only time I can do that is during the summer when my kids don't have school, because mass is in the morning at the same time that they would be at school. So, but during the summer we were able to do that. That was a beautiful experience. I love going to daily mass, but during the school year it's too hard to do it. Um, and I really like traditional Latin mass better, but there's only one of those. Well, there's one on Sunday and one on Wednesday. But Wednesday I can't do it because the kids are in school. And Sunday, that is the mass we go to. I wish I prayed more than I do. I wish I went to adoration and mass more than I do. I really wish that I lived someplace where there was an adoration chapel where I lived, so I could go anytime I wanted. I was in Brazil at the Hesed Institute, and the first day I was there, they had a lot going on that day. They didn't really have time to do anything with me. And I asked them, do you have an adoration chapel? Yes, we have that. So they took me to the room with the adoration chapel is, and I sat down, and they said, we'll check on you. I said, don't bother. I'm good. So I just sat there and I prayed for about 3 hours. Just had a full-blown conversation with Jesus. And then they came back into the room and they're like, are you doing okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. And they're like, can we bring you anything? I said, no, I'm good. Like, you don't need anything. Nope. Okay. So they left again. They were gone for about 2 or 3 hours. They came back in after 3 hours and they're like, we're going to take you to lunch. Okay. And so, I'm telling goodbye to Jesus. I'll see him later. We walk down, get in the car. I think they took me out to eat. And then they're like, now what do you want to do? I said, I don't feel that my conversation with Jesus was done. Can I go back? Like, yes. So they took me back to adoration. So man, I spent about a 9-hour day with Jesus. It was a good day. And I was thinking, I need to do this more often. This was a great day. I've had the most time I've ever spent was 18 hours. And that's when I first came into the church. I wish I could still do those days. I wish I could spend that much time with him. I wish we had extended masses, like there's an extended black mass. Like I love the Easter Vigil and the midnight mass for Christmas. I love those, but I would be willing to go to that every Sunday. When we do a high mass for Sunday, I'm more excited than when we do the low mass, because the high mass has so much beautiful singing. Songs are beautiful. There's more incense being used. It seems like the homily is better quality. And it just seems like that more people should be there, and it's like a joyous event.
Mm-hmm.
The low mass is like, well, let's just come in, get the Eucharist, and leave. And that's all there is. And that's I mean, it's a mass. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I still get the Eucharist. That's a great day, but I more enjoy the high mass than the low mass, and it just seems it's more joyous. There's more love, more joy. I could sit there for another 2 or 3 hours. Now I know my kids do not feel the same way, but to me, that's my favorite mass. The high mass, and then next to that would be the Christmas mass.
Yeah, yeah. I'm daydreaming back to some memories of some beautiful masses like that over here. We're not.
I went to a
Yeah, on you
Go
go.
ahead. I went to a mass in Ireland, and this would have been 2015. I did a 2-week tour there, I don't even know where I was, but I mean, we were all over Ireland for 2 weeks. I spoke twice at a Catholic owned and operated motel, and that was good. But then we were traveling and we stopped someplace for a mass, and the church looks like it was built out of stones, and beautiful stones, and it looked old, like it's been there for like 1,000 years. It may not have been. I have no idea how old it really was. But we went to that mass, and it seemed like it was Novus Ordo, but it seemed like I could have stood up and leaned forward or leaned back, and the Holy Spirit would have held me up. Like it was so holy. And there was this old priest in there. When the mass was over, I just wanted to shake his hand and tell him he did an amazing job. And I shook his hand, told him he did an amazing job. And he said, in a very thick Irish brogue accent that I can't imitate, he asked me if I was Zachary King. And I said, yes. How do you know that? And he says, oh, the Holy Spirit didn't tell me. He goes, I know you. I've seen all your videos. I was like, oh, yeah, that's me. And you know, he's like, I'm humbled to know you chose my church to go to Mass. I said, I was just looking for a church to go to Mass to. And we drove around the corner, and here it was. So we thought, this must be the one.
Beautiful.
And he only had like 10 people in his church. And he's introducing me to everybody there. And then he told me that he's done homilies on Sunday and talked about my messages. He said, my entire homily was on you. And whatever your message was from,
Wow.
the video. Yeah, I was like, wow, I'm humble now.
That's why you were meant to be there, maybe. A little bit.
Maybe.
Even Jesus, I think. I read the one once where it was. Who was the one that came? Was it the Good No. It was the rich man or something that was passing by, and how the way it was given, like even Jesus needed a little feeling of "keep going, son" from the Father, and how people would have came for that. I can't remember which Bible story it was, but that was how it was meditated upon. And I just think maybe like for all the places in the world, you had to go to that church, and that priest knew you so well that even he was putting your name and your stories into his own homilies, and here you are meeting him wherever it was in this little island of Ireland. That's God's providence for sure.
Right. It was beautiful. I'd like to go back to Ireland. I mean, it was, I'd heard it called the Emerald Isle my entire life and
Hmm.
never didn't know why. And then got there and thought, oh, this is why. Everything's green all the time. It was just stunning country. Lovely people, good masses, good homilies, good people at the mass. Good. I mean, we got lost a couple of times and we had to stop and ask people for directions. And some of these people have scowls on their faces, but as soon as you speak to them, a big smile comes on their face, and they gave us all the help we needed.
Yeah, I love Ireland myself. But don't forget Scotland.
I haven't gotten to visit Scotland yet, not as a Catholic.
I'll pray maybe you
I've
will.
been there. I've been there as a high wizard.
Oh, really?
I was there as a high wizard, and I was dressed like a Scotsman. So I had my high wizard makeup and my hat and my cane and my kilt. And I'll have to stop this story here because it takes a turn, and I won't be able to tell it on the air.
Oh, you've got. I can't believe you're dropping me on that now, Zachary. I thought we were getting into a new pathway there. So Scotland's even aware of all. Then it's all happening in Scotland. Then.
They somebody gave me the response that I'm supposed to tell somebody if somebody asks me if I have on underwear under my kilt. That he says this is how you. He says if somebody asks you this, answer them like this.
Yep.
And I was like, why would someone ask me? He goes, because you're an American. Somebody will ask you if you have underwear on under that kilt. I said, okay, and what do I say? He says, you tell them if you're wearing underwear under it, then it's a dress. He says, only a real man in Scotland doesn't wear underwear under their kilt. Because if you wear underwear, it's a dress. And I was like, okay. So that implies I'd be a woman? He goes, yeah, basically, yes. Like, okay.
Well.
So I
Yeah. Sorry. Go
I
ahead.
wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed to wear underwear under my kilt.
Good man. Well, as a young boy when I was growing up, what I was taught was if someone says that you're a real Scotsman for that same reason, your response should be, well, the only way to find out is to take a look. The only way you're going to find
Well,
out.
there was I was standing in a line for food, and this woman came up and asked me if I was a real Scotsman. And I said, no, I'm American. And she goes, so you got underwear under your kilt? I was like, no, if I had underwear under my kilt, this would be a dress. And she goes, all right. So she lifts up the skirt, she lifts up the kilt, and she goes, and she turns around and yells out to all the ladies, he's not wearing no knickers. And all the women are like, aye, he's a real Scotsman.
Yeah, that's what she was meaning.
So, and then that made me very popular. That made me more popular than I was when I first got there.
Right.
It was popular enough when I had the face paint and the top hat and the cane. And then they found out I wasn't wearing any knickers, and suddenly I was even more popular.
Well, you've got me intrigued to what that might be, but if you can't say it on the air, then maybe wrap it up and see if we get 10 minutes of curiosity. Oh, excellent, Zach. We'll have the links in the description box below, and everyone, this is a call to action. Click on those links to the website, and if you need to get in touch with Zach with his email address that he's freely given, and please help support him in this ministry for the amount of souls that God's placed in his heart to reach out to and help and save, and hopefully, please God, convert. So do what you can to help. All the links will be in the description box below. And Zach, if you want to just get any final words to the audience before we wrap up, it's all yours.
I think if anybody's listening that's a Satanist, or anybody that's thought at some point, I'm going to sell my soul to the devil and get whatever I can, I just want to leave you with these final words. You can't sell what you don't own. God died for you. Jesus paid the ultimate price for your soul. You don't own it. You can't loan it, lease it, or sell it. And you may have heard that Satan is a liar. If Satan tells you good morning, get a second opinion. All you have to do is go to confession, give your will back to God, and you are back with God. You have not sold your soul to the devil. It's impossible to do. All right.
Amen. Let's maybe just finish then with a glory be. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Our Lady, Queen of Peace, pray for us. Excellent, Zachary. Thanks very much. Hopefully see you again soon.
All right. God bless.
God bless.